Well, now that the spindle's installed, it's time to get the back gears installed. Got that baby back on here. And see if we can get this thing put back together. So I took and went and got some bar and chain lube and stuck it on here, and that's just to give it a little bit of a tacky grease on there, because I could see it was corroding already, you know, once it got cleaned up without any oil on it. So got a little bit of film of oil on there. Now let's put this thing together. I think it has a collar on each side. Let me look at the diagram. Go in here. We need a collar and the back gear. Another collar. This is a very tedious process, but a little wiggling around, moving, finagling, I finally get everything into place. I do leave the collars loose because that's going to set up how the gears mesh. Man, it took a while, but I got this thing lined up now with the pin. See if I can get that down in there. Alright. There's the back gear. Alright. Pull out of there and go into direct drive. Now I just got to tighten everything up. I don't know if this is the proper way, but I got this old solder, and I think it's lead. So I cut off a little bitty piece that I'm going to stick down that, there we go. I'm going to stick down the thing here before I put the set screw in. It's supposed to have a little piece of lead in it, so we'll see if this works. Alright, ladies and germs, after a lot of fiddling, got the back gears in there. They're meshed properly with the front ones. Got a little bit of wiggle room in here. The headstock is spinning nicely. Gonna run them in to preload it, and headstock is complete. Now that the headstock is together, it's time to lube up the knee parts and get the knee back together. And guys, I just wasn't smart enough to keep track of which side these brackets go on. So guys, on the parts that G Hosties put oil on, I put oil on, and the parts he put grease on, I put grease on. Okay, I'm supposed to take up the slack in here, but make sure that it spins freely. So, see, that seems a little tight. It is so difficult to fit 2 wrenches in here. I had to use a foreign one that was really thin, but eventually I got the jam nuts tight. Alright, I found that little tab thing. It was on the handle, and I'm looking at the diagram. Doesn't look like it goes on the handle, so I'm going to take that thing back off of there and put that where it belongs. Alright, so this is what goes here. Yeah, there we go. This is just another spot where somebody had this apart, but they didn't use a parts diagram to get it back together.
It's a good thing. The Bible says it's a good thing. If you, how old are you, sister?
So I get the handle on it and take the slack out of it, get it tightened up, and give it a test run.
All right, this took some finagling, boys and girls, but I got it on there, and she's spinning freely. No play in it. This has a little bit of play in there just from it being so long. But here's the deal. There was a washer on here that shouldn't have been on here. I just watched this putting together and looked at the diagram, and somebody had previously put a washer on there that doesn't go, so that was causing me some binding issues. That's now all gone. Now the last thing. Let's see about that one. See if I can give her back her name.
Now this is monumental. I've got parts going on to other parts. It's coming back together. Now on the machine mating surfaces that don't have paint, I make sure I give them a light coating of oil. I got several comments on using power tools taking it apart, so I'm using hand tools putting it back together.
Well, in the 2 steps forward, 1 step back, I had totally forgotten I had bought a brand new plunger here. So we'll get this plunger in, and also I forgot to put on I took off this Teflon, fiber washer from on here, so I'll go put those 2 parts back on there, and then we'll get this onto the machine. That's way better. Way better. Alright, let's get this thing back together.
And once again, the non-painted machine mating surfaces get a light coat of oil. Now as you can guess, the more parts that go on, the heavier it gets. So I have to get pretty savvy in moving this thing around to get the bolts tightened because it's pretty heavy. Now getting the neon with the brackets in place already is kind of tricky. You got to make sure you have the back gear lever is in back gear and that the gib is really loose. And one of the things I don't want to forget is the chip guard tin. I want to get that in place. Now I kind of tighten this like you do on car things, I did it in a even crisscross pattern. But once I get the bolts tight on here, it's too tight.
I need a little bit of adjustment in there, maybe 2,000 shim in there. But there she goes. Well, I forgot to put this little cover on, so now I'm gonna get that on. There we go. And also I switched these 2 around because I'm not exactly sure, but it's getting too tight on there. I was going to put a shim on it, but maybe I just put things on the wrong way there, so let's see if we can get this sorted out. Now, put the shim packs in.
And I tried every combination with the brackets and the shims.
Tighten it up and see what we get. Well, ladies and germs, I think that may have it.
I thought wrong, guys. It was just not tight enough, and once I tightened it up, it wasn't right. It was too tight.
Well, I'm going to try. I've got some shims from the Atlas 318 that I'm not using, and these are about 3/1000ths. So I think I'm going to try to modify those to go on top of those, one on each side, because once I tighten this thing up, everything just gets too tight. So I want it to be a little looser, so I'll try some shims. So I got that on there. Let's see if that helps out.
Well, it didn't help. Now when I took the machine apart, there was a piece of felt on there. It was a felt wiper, and I see that in the parts diagram. And so I grab a piece of felt that I have, and I'm using some sticky glue, and I'm going to make my own. I mask the rest of the part off, get it glued up, and put it on. Now later on, this is going to come back to haunt me.
Well, this is going to be a little bit weird in the sense that I got to go handheld because my tripod broke. But I'm going to get this on. Has a couple of alignment pins in it. Make sure they line up and get the 1, 2, 3, 4 on there. I'm going to put a little oil on those faces that are unprotected and get this thing buttoned on there. Okay, now that that plate is on there, I need to figure out how big to make that spacer. Mine didn't come with the spacer that goes on here, and it goes between here, right on here. So I got to measure that and make a bushing. Alright, so there's the bushing. See if it works. And there it is on there. We'll put it on there and see how it fits. We might have to shave a little bit off. Oh. Alright, here's that bushing I made. A couple more times into the lathe and got to the perfect size. So here she goes. So, do a little oil on everything. Alright, after another trip to the lathe, now I can snug this up really tight. This works like a champ. Ready to go. Alright. Next goes on that. Got oil on that. Guess that I'll clean them, so since I'm going to clean them, I can use them.
That thing literally, this shaper or mill literally has a change-o-matic.
Yes. That's actually filming right now. You see the little red light blinking?
Hello. What'd you do wrong?
I think I got this in there backwards.
I'm just testing it with the old plexiglass to kind of see how it fits on here, but I got a brand new piece of plexiglass I'm going to put on there. It's crystal clear. I had this plexiglass sitting around from a project from a while back, so I cut it at the right size, and now we got a beautiful piece of glass going in there. Plexiglass, that is. So I use my scribe just to line up the first little hole, and then I'm going to get the little tabs or pins or whatever you call them to go in, and I use a long aluminum dowel rod to bang them in because I don't want to put dents in them, so I use something softer, which is this aluminum rod.
Ta-da! Guys, look what McMaster Cars sent me out of the goodness of their hearts. Well, and some money. Shim stock, 2/1000ths and 3/1000ths, and some rubber for those things that are missing in my my lockdown. So hopefully that'll fix it all. Let's see if we can make some parts.
So I use my shims as templates to make new shims and cut them out. And I use the 3/1000 and the 5/1000 because I can make either 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 out of that. And that should work for me. So I started off with the 3/1000 per side shim, and that was too tight. So then I went with 2 of them to 6/1000 per side to check that out.
All right, it looks like about 6 more thousandths, so I put 2 3/1000 shim in there, and now it's free to go up and down, but no wiggle in there. Now if that's turns out, as I find out that it's too loose, which I don't think it is, then I'll pull out one of those 3/1000ths and put in one of these 2,000 shims and make it 5/1000 instead of 6/1000. So this feels good now that it can go up and down with these bolts tight. Now I'll just put the gib screws on and get that settled. All right. Actually had to go back in, pull out this 3/1000 and put a 2/1000 on this side, and got the gib semi-adjusted. Things look like they're going pretty smooth.
So now it's time to get this oiled up and onto the knee.
All right. Actually goes on this side, and the screw goes down this side. Just going to snug that up. Not going to make it really tight. Just going to get it snug in there. Well, when I was looking at that gib, it was a little bent, and so I kind of bent it back a little bit to get it straight. Might have to look for a new gib, see how the accuracy is on it. First things first, get this in here.
This sheet metal is so tight that I ended up taking a file and kind of making sure there were no burrs on it and kind of profiled it so that it fit in there nicely.
We can get this on here. Start on the gib side. Yikes.
Now for you guys who are real observant, you'll notice that I got this thing on there wrong. Now I don't realize it yet, but I'm working on trying to get it on there, get it fit, get the gibs working, and then I realize it.
Now let's get the handle on there. Okay, I got this oiled up pretty good, and I need to find it in there. And this is a left hand thread, so we gotta act like we're tightening it. So loosening it. There it goes. Yeah, you actually loosen it to tighten it. Alright, now to adjust the gibs.
Now I take my time to make sure that these gibs are adjusted really nice and feel smooth, and then I realize my problem.
Well, those of you who are real astute realize what I just did there. I stuck it on backwards. So we'll have to flip this around the other way. Because these gib screws have to be pointing toward me. So there we go. That's the correct way. Now we'll get the gib in. All right, now we'll put the handle back on. All right, it probably is going to take some adjusting here with this thing. This chip tray is so tight in there that, well, I can't really tell when the gibs are tight and stuff because of that thing. Well, maybe it's loosening up now. It's probably that raggedy gib. See if I can source a new gib.